Hey guys, welcome back. Mickey Campbell here. As I told you guys before, I'm going to start doing 2 segments a week on this show, Transformation Talk. The first one is going to come out every Tuesday. That's going to be Transformation Tuesday. And the second one is coming out on Fridays. Every Friday, we're going to do Freestyle Friday. So on Transformation Tuesday, obviously we're going to continue to focus more on transformation. What it takes to achieve a successful transformation, body, mind, and spirit, how to get started on it, how to overcome some of the obstacles that you're going to face, just pretty much everything needed on a transformation journey from start to finish to try to share with you guys through my eyes of what I personally experienced and what I've spent the last decade of my life studying and experiencing while literally being able to help hundreds of men and women achieve some pretty remarkable transformations. But then on Friday, we're going to lighten it up a little bit. On Fridays, we're going to call that Freestyle Friday. And that's just kind of a play. Some of you may or may not know, I was a professional wrestler for a large majority of my younger life. And my last name was Free. So it's just a kind of a play on words with that, and also kind of a semblance of what it'll be. It'll just be freestyle talk. We're going to talk about stories from the past. We'll talk about current events. We'll talk about just kind of funny and lighthearted stuff, and just ramble, mostly just pretty much as you will. But today, I wanted to start it off with a question that's often asked me is, how did I even get started in pro wrestling? And it's a story that's true and dear to my heart because it started as a little boy. Growing up, my pop and I, we watched wrestling about every Saturday morning. Jim Crockett Promotions Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling came on Saturday mornings, and a ritual for us was to get some hot dogs or something and sit in front of the TV and watch that. And of course, as a kid, I was always pulling for the good guys, and Pop was always kind of ragging me a little bit and pulling for the bad guys, and we just had a good time with it. And I always told him that one day I was going to do that. One day I was going to be a professional wrestler myself and achieve those dreams in my life. And Pop was pretty inspirational and stood behind me. He kind of would rather me go on to be a lawyer or a doctor or some other type of professional, but he wasn't ever one that really just kind of downplayed my dreams. He kind of pumped them up for me a little bit. And so fast forward, going through school, we were big fans of wrestling. My best friend Scott Franklin and I, even in high school, we ended up working together part-time at Bilo after school, and we consider ourselves to be 4 horsemen. So anytime we caught somebody in the back room or walking through the parking lot in the dark at night after work or something, we would jump out and kind of 4 horsemen. And we wouldn't actually physically punch them and beat them up, but we would kind of act like we were wrestlers, and we had a really good time with it. And then shortly after that, we were all hanging out one night. Back then, kids kind of tended to gather and cruise and hang out. And in Lawrence, a small town that I grew up in, popular spots for us were either the town square or a shopping center parking lot or a McDonald's parking lot. And we would kind of cruise between those 3 places and stop and hang out as long as we could. And, if the crowd got too big, the cops would come up and run us all off or whatever. But we were standing outside one night leaning against our car, and a car pulled up, and a couple of buddies of ours, they were in the car. And one of them had a busted lip, and the other one had a little bit of a shiner. And we asked them what happened, and they had been down to Lake Greenwood. There was a place down there that was a teenage hangout. They wouldn't let adults in, so if you were over, I think it was 19 or 20, they wouldn't let you in. So yeah, anybody that was legal to drink couldn't come in. So it was, I think it was called Teen Turf, and they had gone down there and gotten into an altercation from some guys from another town. They said they were outnumbered, and they got roughed up pretty bad. So we all kind of, what are you going to do, right? Your buddies got beat up, so we all kind of head off, and we're going to ride down there. And Scott and I were in the same car, and we were 4 horsemen and up, man. We were in our minds, all this stuff we were going to do. And I remember I tied a bandana around my head. I had, real long mullet hair that was popular for the time. And we go down there, and anyways, we get to Teen Turf, and one thing led to another. And after it was all said and done, we left. Well, a couple weeks later, maybe a week or so later, word got back to me that the guy that owned Teen Turf, his name was Jerry Hall, and he was a wrestling promoter. Well, people were telling me that Jerry Hall was impressed by me, and he wanted to know who I was and wanted to know if I'd be interested in professional wrestling. And man, that was too good to be true. And I just didn't know if somebody had kind of heard that, you know, my dream was to wrestle, and they were trying to lure me back down there and really put it on me, right? So I was a little weary of going, and so I didn't go for a little while. By this time, I was working in a cotton mill in Inner East, South Carolina, and one of the guys that worked with me was from Lake Greenwood, and he came over to me and he says, man, my cousin is a wrestler. He said, you know, he's not a big time wrestler. He does those local, what we now know to be independent shows, and he wanted to know if I knew you or not. That his promoter is interested in talking to you. He wants you to be a wrestler. I said, is that real? I mean, I just didn't believe it. And he said, man, he said, when you came into Teen Turf the other weekend, he was just impressed by the way you carried yourself and the way you handled the situation. And he really wanted to talk to you. Thought you had the look and the charisma and everything. I said, man, I don't know. He said, well, my cousin said he'd be glad to meet with you and ride over there with you if you wanted to go. So he set up a meeting, and one Sunday afternoon, Scott got with me, and Scott and I, we rode down, and we met Chris Weeks. He was with a tag team back then called the Rockin' Rebels, and we met with him at the Waterloo Food Store and talked to him for a little while, and then we rode over to Jerry Hall's house, was where he wanted to meet with us at. And when we got there, there was a wrestling ring setting up in the front yard of a single wide trailer on Lake Greenwood, and there was a couple of big old guys, older guys in there, and they were bouncing around and scuffling around and everything. And Jerry started talking to me, and old Jerry, he's a great guy. I'll always think the world of Jerry. But he started talking to me, and Jerry was a one-of-a-kind guy. If you know Jerry, you know what I'm talking about. But he's telling me all about the wrestling business and how he thinks I can do real good at it. And so I get in the ring, I start messing around, and I tell you, when I crawled through those ropes, I fell in love. And this ring, y'all, it was a old pipe-style ring, and it just had plywood laid across 2x6s and iron runners, and there wasn't nothing to brag about. And carpet, there was no pad, there was no canvas, there was no apron, there was nothing. It was just the base bare roots of the ring set up in this man's front yard. But when I climbed through those ropes, it was magical for me. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that my childhood dreams were going to come true, and I was going to be a professional wrestler. So they showed me some basics, and I played around with them for about an hour or so, and some of the guys started leaving, and I didn't want to get out of the ring. I wanted to keep playing. I wanted to keep doing it. I felt at home. And so Jerry stayed in there with me for a good little while, and then when it was about time to go, I called Scott over to the apron, and he climbed up on the apron. The next thing he knows, I grabbed him and slingshot suplexed him over the top rope into wrestling, and then was born Ricky Regal. So that was the way the Mickey Free and Ricky Regal got started in professional wrestling, and both went on to fulfill childhood dreams. And we ended up having a pretty good run from that time forward until we were about 23 years old. So from about 18 to 23, the Lightning Express took off around the time we were about 19. And honestly, we were main event at pretty much all the independent shows around the Southeast, and especially in upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina, and northeast Georgia. We pretty much were main event on every card that was run, carried most every organization's tag team titles at some point throughout that. I think we counted one time that we had over 17 tag team championships together as the Lightning Express, and we made a pretty good run. We had a really good time. Really enjoyed it. Never thought of anything else, and it was just different back then because, you know, we didn't have the internet, and you didn't have the different schools and different things that people have access to now, and the different opportunities. So it was almost like a secret brotherhood if you didn't have somebody to open that door for you. So it showed me at a young age how if you put enough out into the universe and you ask God for it long enough, He'll open those doors for you. And it's up to you what you did with them. And I don't have any regrets about pro wrestling except for I didn't take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that were before me. I didn't put 100% effort towards it at the times it should. But I lived my dream. I had a really good time. And that's how I got started in it. And that's the story of the first 5 years of my career as Lightning Express, from about 19 years old to about 23 years old. Just living it up, man. We would just get together, and I'll tell you some road stories on this Freestyle Friday. I'll tell you some some backstage stories. I'll tell you some of the ribs that got pulled on us, and I'll share one here with you right quick. When we first started doing shows, we borrowed gear for a little while, and there's a whole story about buying wrestling boots, and I'll tell you that one later. I'll tell you a good Ox Baker story from the beginning of my career, and just a lot of different stories. But I'm looking forward to Freestyle Friday and just opening up and letting you guys know more about me and where I kind of got started and why I'm doing what I do now, which is what I'm most passionate about, and the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life is helping people achieve their transformation goals and seeing other people rise up from lower places and develop a life that serves them and brings them fullness and happiness and joy. So if I can ever help you with any of that, please feel free to reach out to me. If you have any questions that you want to hear me discuss on Transformation Talk Tuesday, shoot me an email or comment on this video. And anything you want me to discuss on Freestyle Friday, it's wide open. I'll talk to you guys about anything. I hope you guys enjoy the show. I hope you guys tune in. If you like it, please comment, like, and share and subscribe. Help me spread the word about Transformation Talk because, again, it is my passion to help people achieve their transformation goals. You guys take care. Have a great day, and God bless.